Greetings and welcome to Maisha Kazini. We are back with the usual conversations with Mordecai Ogada, and we want to reflect on what has been happening in Kenya over the last 2 weeks with the finance bill protests. So, Karibu Ogada.
Thank you.
All right. So, as we've been talking, I'm telling you, I never thought I would see this in my lifetime. I had given up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted us to talk historically because 30 years ago, it was our generation on the streets. This generation that is now ruining the economy and being tone deaf. We were the people on the streets. So how did we reach here? Maybe we can start there. How did we reach here where now it's the next generation telling us the same things we were telling Moi?
Yeah. I think it's important for us to note that, we were operating under a very different constitutional dispensation and world order even.
Yes.
Moi was at the height of his power. I think the United States was pretty much at the height of its power. And that power was also wielded through institutions based in the United States. So when Moi was oppressing us, obviously with protest and all that, and most opposition was being identified, silenced in various ways, exiled. Koigi Wamere, those guys were into exile. Miguna had to run away through very perilous routes, by the way. And some lost their lives as well, not to mention those who were gotten even tortured at Nyayo House. So internally, it was very difficult. Then, strangely, the only saving grace came through our economic difficulties. So Kenya had these economic difficulties. Then we turned to these poisoned chalices called Bretton Woods institutions, like World Bank and IMF. And then at that time, IMF comes in saying that they're coming to help us. And IMF, in their language of quote unquote helping us, they include talk about human rights. IMF suddenly is telling Moi, we want you also to respect human rights as we loot your country.
Yes.
World Bank is also telling Moi, we want you to respect human rights as we give you bad loans or nefarious credit, as it's called. So suddenly, World Bank and IMF looked to us like friends, like our friends.
Like it was the enemy of the enemy of our enemy is our friend. So
yes.
that was the logic.
Yes. These pirates are the ones saving us from Moi.
And in fact, actually, maybe we also need to talk about the Cold War era, what it meant, because you see, the US was openly funding Kenya.
Yes.
With the basic idea that we are doing this so that Kenya does not become communist. So for that generation who were fighting then, it was important that the US stops funding Moi, because Moi got away with what he did because of the fear of communism, basically.
Yes. Just like Mobutu as well.
Yes. Yeah, so now that the curtain had fallen, the iron, in fact, I shouldn't call it that. Now that USSR had broken up, people could now have a leg to stand on to say, stop funding this government, because the reason why they are torturing us like this is because you're supporting them. It's just that we didn't know the IMF is not our friend.
Yes. And I mean, the Bretton Woods institutions are oppressive tools that were developed after World War II to ensure the proliferation of Western hegemony. And unfortunately, because of this circumstance, we got to see like they are our friends, because they're the only ones who could speak out against these excesses. You remember the days when Harold Workman was the World Bank country director. And
And
suddenly
that's
he was
our
the
ambassador. What was his name? Hempstone.
Smith
The
Hempstone.
West ambassador, Hempstone, yeah.
Yes, Smith Hempstone. These are the people, Workman, Hempstone. These are the people who could sort of speak and chest stamp in Kenya, in spite of Moi's power. And these individuals actually got quite a strong foothold in Kenya, even with the opposition politicians.
Yes.
At some point, Harold Workman was even involved in some plot with the late Richard Leakey to take over control of Kenya's national parks until the late Newton Kulundu put an end to that nonsense. Yeah. It was Workman and Leakey who had a plan to take over national parks. So these people became very powerful from being seen as voices of reason or voices against dictatorship, yet they were just representing another type of captivity. And that's what clouded our reasoning. And then our generation, these things got cemented in our brains. We didn't keep reading. We didn't keep learning.
We were not taught.
I don't know why.
Remember, we were not taught. We did the missionary curriculum, as in, me, I remember in school doing New York. We were learning about New York and the Netherlands and what in geography.
Yes.
So we never learned about
history. We were learning about the Rhinelands. It was called the Rhinelands.
Yes, the Rhinelands. Yeah, there was a text.
Yes, from Netherlands to Germany to Switzerland. The Rhinelands. Yeah. Even now I'm embarrassed to go, and I go to Switzerland. I go to a small town and I say, oh my God, I know this town, but I just keep quiet. I know it from geography.
From geography.
Yeah. We learned about the Rhinelands. And then we learned about the Tennessee River Valley, the United States.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember that one.
Then there was a whole chapter on British Columbia in Canada.
Yes.
I knew intimately about the Hoover Dam and those nonsense in the United States. I knew those things intimately because I did like geography. So that's what anything we aspired to was Western in thought, Western in target, and in Western thinking. We aspired to whiteness completely, then we were hurt by the way we were taught to be competent to read and study these chapters. So we stopped reading when we left school, most of us. You got into university, you read and studied for your course, but when you finished, you stopped reading.
Never read again.
And we stuck with that up to now, and here we are.
Here we are. And I was just remembering also, I mean, I was telling Karonganga at Msingi Talks about even how the evangelical church also captured us. Because when we were leaving, we were graduating. And then you're just seeing these flamboyant churches where you can dance. You see, some of us, the way we grew up, we were not dancing in church. We were not playing instruments because it was considered immoral or sinful. So now you're seeing these hype American-style preachers and Americans. They are playing instruments. You can dance in church. You can, So we were also captured at the spiritual level by the same wave. Yeah. Oh.
And suddenly this looked like this is freedom. This is advancement. This is good. But you jump from one cage into another cage. Into another cage. At no point did I mean, we end up growing to the age of 30s, 40s, and we're now in our 50s. And at no point were you given an opportunity to think for yourself.
No.
In fact, those of us who think for ourselves, we fought and we've bled and we've struggled and cried for these opportunities. We've been hurt for thinking for ourselves. And it's cost us dearly. to think for ourselves. But it's just that we needed that oxygen. So here we are. That's why that's the generation now that are in cabinet, are in state house, deputy president, heads of corporations, top civil servants. There's no thinkers.
Wow.
Even those who are thinkers had to throw away that to get a post in government.
God.
You do. If you think in Kenya government, you are thrown out the next day.
Yeah,
I can say with
what we talked about from when we started talking on this channel. That's what we've been saying. That if you think you're thrown out, and the person who is appointed is deliberately, it's somebody who is not competent deliberately, and not competent doesn't mean they've not gone to school. It means they have no experience and training in the field that they have been hired.
And no initiative.
And no initiative. So you contain them like that. You put doctors in charge of sports. You put accountants in charge of health. So you keep mixing things like that so that nobody is in a place where they have expertise.
Yes, in fact, a friend of mine, I can tell you, sir, a friend of mine, a good friend of mine, once was talking to the Minister for Tourism, then Minister Najib Balala, and told him, like, all these policy challenges you have, why don't you hire someone like Mordecai Ogada to help you with that? He said, Ogada has got some very good ideas, but we can't control him.
Yeah. Because knowledge is power, despite what our economist says. Knowledge is power.
And if someone was sensible, he would say, okay, I know I can't control this guy, but I can hire him for 6 months on a contract and get his ideas to help make things work. But control is the most important thing. Not contribution.
But you know, that's very British. Even the British, I was reading
British
a
civil
story.
service.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a British civil service. I was reading an example in this book called Crisis and Control about colonial Kenya. And the guy was saying that the colonial officers were so neurotic about controlling that if today they went to a village and nobody smiled at them, it becomes a political problem. What are they thinking? Are they planning something? Why are they not smiling at me? Smiling.
Yeah.
That's how obsessed they were with control.
Yeah.
You can't even not smile.
Yeah.
If they want you to smile, you should smile. And not only you should smile for them, but also like it's a genuine thing. I mean, it's just a psychosis of control. And
that's where the singing for dignitaries came from.
Ah, yes.
I mean, if you're going to open a bridge or something, can't you just open it? You have some people singing for you.
By the way.
Easy.
But okay, I also wanted us to talk about the NGOs because they also came at that time.
Yeah. Yes. At that time, because of government excesses, again, dealing with government became anathema for many donors. Someone wants to help to help with the education or issues of malnutrition, food security, whatever, want to do that in Kenya. But the Kenya government has been declared anathema by your government. So we need an NGO through which to funnel this aid. And this grew to huge amounts. I mean, the sort of amounts that are given government to government, the amounts that are processed through government ministries, imagine being processed through a small organization with maybe 20 staff, like that's a pile of money.
Yeah,
and a pile of problems, and a pile of corruption, and a pile of hubris, and a pile of extravagance.
Oh yes.
Because because and money given by governments, they require to report back to their Congress or their parliament or their legislatures. So it's time limited. So you need to have a high, what they call burn rate. I can't give you $5 million and six months later, you're still telling me you need to spend it because I need to report on what we've done. So all this creates a whole chain of problems from inflation to corruption to procurement problems to extravagance because of this required burn rate. And this is what created NGOs and their power and their largesse. Suddenly, the ideal job to have was an NGO job because you don't do much. You earn a pile of money and you report to somebody, some foreign officer.
Not even, oh Jesus, not even to us. You're not accountable to us.
No. And this created incredible scenes of, I'd say, questionable activities. When I was doing my master's, went on a field trip to Turkana and we were trapping mammals. And one of the biggest sources of mammals was just rodents and rodents around the food stores that were what was storage for food to be given to people in Sudan when there was war then. And obviously there'd be so many mice and there'd be so many snakes and there'd be so many Gen X eating the mice and mongooses. So we'd end up trapping around the food storage facility. And these NGO people would come and chase us away because, we are being embarrassment. And so this is where the mice are. As we are trapping mammals, this is where the mammals are. and this showed and the food would be rotting. Some of it would be rotting because they're too lazy to get in their planes to fly across to go and just dump it out there. Wow. But government has given $5 million. So you have to buy $5 million worth of maize, and you don't have enough time or pilot to fly this $5 million worth of maize to Sudan. And there's all sorts of problems that come out from that. And at the same time, you don't want to open the doors of the stores and let local people come and take maize. This Turkana, it's not like people have piles of food to eat there. So if you open the stores and give maize out, it would still help some hungry people. But no, it's Operation Lifeline Sudan. So you can't be feeding people in Turkana. And this is what created these NGOs that became monsters, and they also became now sort of political voices. And when the crises that the various crises that these NGOs were addressing, when these crises came to an end, they suffered identity problems or problems of irrelevance. When the war in Sudan ended, NGOs collapsed, so many. And when human rights violations in Kenya ended, so many NGOs collapsed and civil society voices, or they faced crisis of identity. What do we talk about now? Who are we fighting now? How do we keep money coming in now? And that led to the rise of the activists it led to the rise of activism as an end in itself, not as a means to achieving an end. Yeah.
And then, that now spilled over into the universities because the universities started tailoring their programs to the NGOs. So instead of philosophy, you have human rights. Instead of history, you have peace and conflict studies.
Yes.
What else?
Yes.
I mean, we started to NGO-nize our programs.
Yeah,
but also
and the gender thing also.
The gender, yes.
Yeah, the gender studies, which is, I don't know why they call it gender studies, and when it's all about women's stuff. So I'm not sure why gender equals women.
So now they've started to include masculinity in that gender, but the point is where these courses started.
Yes, it's now when universities started teaching courses to feed a particular market, the so-called market-driven nonsense.
Yes.
Because NGOs were the first market.
Even
That's why
arts
you
became
have now
arts for development.
Yes, development studies. I mean, for God's sake, what is development studies? What is that?
It's for NGOs.
It's for NGOs. It's for NGOs. And that's why we even got to a point now including even supply chain management, logistics. These are for NGOs.
And procurement.
Yes, procurement.
Hey, we were captured.
We were captured. We were captured because
at every front.
Yeah, and you can't totally blame those who got captured because they chose the path of least resistance. And it's just that it's now led them to a dead end. But those of us who chose the path with the resistance, we chose to read, we chose to question, we chose to do introspection, and we chose to be observant. That was difficult.
Yes,
I know myself the difficulties I've been through because because I kept looking for logic in conservation practice. I asked people, why are you doing this? People tell me, shut up. Why are you doing this? There's money for it. Donor has given money for it. So what is the aim of this? Why are we listening to so and he's a Form 4 graduate? No, he's the one with the money. So we got captured.
So we've talked about the 90s, but so, you know, in the 90s, by 92, we had multi-party, then 97, Moi returned again. But now towards 2002, things are starting to shift. So I wanted to ask, what happened in 2002? Because now we have this mess, intellectual and cultural and philosophical mess, where we have IMF looking like our friends because they are against Moi, and so are we. Then we have the NGOs which have sapped the energy of Kenyan youth working at us, and they've put it into NGOs basically. So we are not even going back to our institutions. Now we are being taken into NGOs. So when Kibaki wins, what happens? I mean, what's the Kenya that is happening at that time?
What happened in Kenya? Again, we have another. There's also global context to it. Beginning of the 21st century, China woke up and started telling people, hey, I'm also here. The West stopped being the sole point of reference. Everybody trying to achieve Western standards because the West is best, the West is most powerful, the West is richest, the most successful. Suddenly China woke up and say, hey, excuse me, I'm here. West African governments had other had other people they could look to for support. People who didn't care about the so-called the human rights issues, who didn't care, but who didn't ask those questions. People were just about business and not trying to colonize minds. And then Kibaki to his credit, despite being a product of the post-colonial arrangements.
Yeah. He's an LSE guy.
Yes, LSE. He had his ideas of what he wanted to do with that knowledge. And he had, I want to do this. Maybe he stayed long enough in government to see, like, I could do this, I could do this. And the one or two things he did, like simply deciding that government will not borrow that much from banks and you have to borrow from people. You have to lend to people. Deciding that through policy, you can do things at your pace without having to bow down intellectually to someone else. And that was something that Kenyans, it took Kenyans aback. You remember There's a time people used to talk about Kibaki's hands-off style. Like people say, what's the president doing? How can a minister say? Some ministers sometimes would even get into disputes between them. And people wonder, Kibaki is saying nothing. Especially after he's saying nothing, especially the days when Tida Murungaru would be saying this, and Orengo is saying this, and so and so is saying this. People say, why is Kibaki not saying anything? And Kibaki would give ministers, from what I heard, give ministers their mandate and say, I don't want you coming to ask me what to do. You make it work. And you'd see Kipruto Arap Kirwa trying to implement his ideas in agriculture, different people in different ministries and this kind of thing. And even Kulundu in the wildlife telling off the American ambassador because he didn't need to ask his boss, what can I tell the Americans? And that was an awakening there. But we didn't know really how to deal with it.
Because the universities became worse.
We still needed a prefect.
From what I've seen, they became worse.
Yes.
Because they now started moving to NGOs, problem solving. That's when it starts. Market-driven, donors must approve our programs, they must fund us, that kind of thing. That's how we were moving.
Kibaki sort of changed the way the presidency or the office of the president operates operating in a different way, but he failed to change the country. So he came into the presidency with the ideas of what he wanted to do, but universities never managed to come up with any ideas of their own to this day. The Moi stopped being their prefect, they started looking for a new prefect. Kibaki looked at them and said, Kibaki looked at them and said, me, I'm not going to tell you what to teach. So suddenly donors started telling them what to teach. You fund a program and then
let me process that one. God. But why?
It's because they'd grown up. These were our generation. You know, our generation now are the professors.
We were starting to enter the university. In fact, I started teaching that in around 2000.
Yes. And eventually we got to the point where professors were seeing professorship as a path to state jobs instead of as a path to academic excellence. Kina Kaimenyi, Kina Matiang'i, Kina Magoha, the late.
Can you just put in the NGOs? Because a lot of these people, they also pass through the NGOs.
Yes.
You get your professorship, go to an NGO, then you get into government. So maybe we can also talk.
In fact, NGOs were now providing a path to seniority in university. Because if you can write a proposal, get a good grant, money comes into your department, you get promoted to professor. So basically, an NGO could make you a professor.
No, I can't deal.
And then when you get to be VC or head of department, now you are the one who gives permits to NGOs. You're the one who let them run courses here. You are the ones who let them give you input into your courses and these kind of things. And now eventually, we've gotten to the point where a donor has been appointed the chancellor.
By the way, okay?
Makoyen is a donor. He's not a scholar by any measure of that term. He's a donor. He's now the chancellor. And the only big idea he has brought is a new school of AI. He wants to teach AI at master's level. That shows you how pathetic he is as a scholar. He's just a donor. So this is what we were saying when we had our talk saying that academia is dead. This is the death of academia. This is how that death happened. So this is the postmortem of that death. This is how academia died.
I have to think. That one. I had not seen that one. Gosh. So basically, from the 90s to the Kibaki era from the 90s into the Kibaki era, we are a whole generation entering the academy, entering the cultural spaces.
Yeah, because
and
state
we've
power
diminished. Yes.
The state power diminished. They remained a vacuum because we were empty, hollow. NGOs moved into the vacuum.
Oh, and I wanted to ask about, this culture of hotel workshops, per diems, capacity building.
Yeah.
I noticed, I just occurred to me the other day, this is an NGO culture that entered the government.
It entered state, yes. The other day at this World Bank meeting, Museveni said that, he had this long rant at the World Bank people and said, like, if I ask you for money to build a bridge, you won't give it to me. But if I ask you money for capacity building, you'll give it to me even tomorrow. Have workshops at hotels, extract ideas, waste time, give per diems. That money is given all the time. And it came into government. That's why no government function happens without per diem. A minister takes per diem to go and give a press conference like Mutai Kagwe used to give. Those Corona press conferences, they were earning per diem at all. They were paying journalists per diem to cover them. That's why there were no hard questions being asked. And that's why those things were always crowded. Then that's why he'd choose one weekend he would go to give his press conference in Wajir for some reason. People would wonder, why is he going to Wajir? Oh, it's per diem for him and the drivers and everybody. That is why even the late Magoha would be going around schools like an inspector of schools, running up and down schools every place, collecting litter and inspecting for litter. It's per diem.
And that came from the NGOs.
Donor practices came from the NGO world into state. And right now, as we speak, the biggest part of Kenya government expenditure is the wage bill. Not because of salaries. The salaries are not high in Kenya government. It's the allowances. It's per diem.
Really like those allowances. Sometimes it's an allowance of 5K. And then I'm like, you're going to sell your soul for 5,000. I don't understand it.
And you see, they forget that the culture of a donor, as I told you, there's that burn rate. A donor is under pressure to spend money. A government's objective should be to save money. Now imagine if the person is meant to be saving money because this taxpayers' money has taken on the culture of a person who is under pressure to spend money because he needs to report.
Wow.
This is where our economic problems come from.
And those donors, those grants are really bad because they first of all, you're so busy reporting, you're not even thinking about what you're doing, which is
you're not doing anything.
You're not doing anything except reporting and watching their accounts. But then now, what they tell you is, if you don't finish the money we gave you, it means you don't have a good project.
You are incompetent.
What is that?
It's nonsense. And that's why even in conservation organization, you find senior African staff with PhDs, they're signing imprests. They're looking at receipts. They're signing work tickets with their PhDs in conservation science. They're signing work tickets for drivers to go take some people to go pick a baby elephant in Samburu or some nonsense like that. It's not work. It's paper pushing. I don't know what to call it. It's not work. But suddenly we are all doing it and we are all spending money and we are achieving exactly zero. That's why we've just finished Bunge Towers costing 9 billion shillings. Disgusting opulence. But when the committee went to discuss finance bill, they went to Naivasha. They couldn't meet in Bunge Towers.
Yes.
Just opened. They went to Naivasha. That idiot Kimani Kuria and his group.
For per diem.
For per diem. For per diem and mileage.
This thing is rotten. It's completely rotten.
So NGO behavior got into state, and state is struggling. So when our president travels abroad, he carries a whole bunch of people, despite the fact that the country is going to, we have a fully staffed embassy who can be handling the state matters there, appointment and all that. And despite having those staff there, our president still shows up at Tyler Perry Studios and there's no appointment and Tyler Perry is not there. Or you see him going to visit corporations escorted by the US ambassador to Kenya, instead of the Kenya ambassador to the US.
To the US.
Yeah.
So this confusion is even that side, eh? It's not just on that side.
It's everywhere. No one talks of objectives anymore. Everyone reports on activities.
That is true.
You know, this report, yeah. We are reporting that we went to Naivasha, we went to America, we went to this. What did you want there? What did you do there? What did you achieve there? No one talks about that.
So this is the culture, but how does that tie with the economy?
That means the economy has gotten to, we've gotten to a point where our economy does not have objectives. Our economy is based on consumption. Because if it doesn't have objectives or ideas, because if you see the Kenya government, to achieve its aims, they don't address it through policy. They want to achieve their aims by raising taxes. I mean, even I could do that. They don't need all these guys from Oxford and all these other places in their advisory committee to tell them to raise taxes. Even I could tell you. It's like a dairy farmer. To expand your farm, the idea cannot be to milk the cows more. You see, it can't be. Kamua zaidi. It can't be. That can't be it. It can maybe take a loan, buy another cow, have artificial insemination so that they can have some babies, and that's how you grow. It can't be milk the cow more. So that's what it's done to our economy. All these other things are ideas, whether it's about calling your brother to lend you some money to buy another cow or something. Those are now ideas on how to expand your herd and whatever. Or to change maybe I change the cattle feed. This one seems to give more higher milk of yield when I feed them this, give them molasses. I don't know, those things people do. Those are the ideas to increase your output and grow your dairy business, not to milk more. And our economy lacks any of those ideas of, should I do AI or change the feed? There's nothing. And anybody who has ideas is quickly disposed of. You cannot survive in government with ideas. That is why I'm not aware has become a valid part of government lexicon. You can, a press conference, a minister can be asked about a problem under his ministry and he can say, I'm not aware. And that is considered a valid answer. The deputy president himself talked to the nation the other day and had the temerity to tell us that his boss was unaware of what was going on in Kenya.
No.
And should have been briefed.
No.
Even Mordecai Ogada knew what was going on in Kenya.
It was in the newspaper.
And NIS has never briefed me on anything. I knew from the news, my mobile phone, everything, it's on the streets. And the deputy president stood there and told us. that his boss was not aware of what was going on in Kenya because he had not been briefed. Really?
No.
That was probably the saddest statement of many sad statements I've heard out of government officials. That's very sad. If it's true, it's sad. If it's a lie, it's still sad. And that's where we've gotten to.
Okay. So we are entering the 2000s with people with no ideas. I think there's also a euphoria that Kibaki has won, we've got more out.
Yeah.
But what we are saying is it ended there. There was really no going back to the drawing board and saying, who are we? What ideas do we have? And then we have the culture of spending and largesse and always talking to donors.
Yeah.
So getting international accolades became the thing. So remember Binyavanga Wainaina gets the Kane Prize. And then meanwhile, the people who are doing things at home, getting accolades abroad, are not being recognized at home. So
yes.
It's a very bizarre dynamic.
It was a very bizarre dynamic, and you realize that we are so desperate for the international, the white gaze, to please the white gaze. You realize how upset our generation is that Ngugi has not been given the Nobel.
Yeah.
It doesn't make him any less of a writer.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't. Do you realize the Nobel has been given to useless people like Bob Dylan? What is a singer? With all due respect to singers, I mean, a singer is not a writer. The Nobel has been given to some state. There's some guy was given a couple of some Swedish writer. People asking, who is that? So Ngugi wa Thiong'o is a great writer, but somehow we are stuck on without Western recognition, we are not great. Without acknowledgement from the white gaze, you are not great. It's that strange thing we call international standards. We should just say we are the Western standards.
The universities are stuck there through the Commission of University Education. And may they not punish me or my university, but that's what they're doing. They're telling us about other people.
Yes. Western. No one wants to, no one tells you that you should comply to the very high admittedly very high standards that may exist in the East or Japan. If you are studying manufacturing, creativity, business, capitalism, export growth, you should be looking to Chinese standards. They're at the top of that game right now. But we keep using the word international, but what we mean is Western.
Hey, and those people are in our business. See, even we were saying the other day how in the month of April, May, June, you're getting all these letters from academics abroad. Oh, I'm coming to Kenya. I want to interview you.
Yeah.
And they're in our business.
Even students, they don't want to quote my paper,
but
they want to talk to me. They don't want to put anything in writing. They want a Zoom call. They're saying, I'm coming to Kenya. I said, was I part of your proposal? I'm overqualified to be a data point on your study. I tell them, there's my blog, there's my YouTube channel, there are my papers. But they want to get it verbally from you so that they present it as their own idea. And I found that even the top academics in Western universities, they're the ones actually giving these people our names and contacts, these students our names and contacts. Rather than inviting me to collaborate on this study or be a co-supervisor, You sit there, take the accolades, and give your student my contacts. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. No, it's not going to happen.
So we went
even,
through the 2000s, the first decade of the 2000s, on empty.
You are on empty, intellectually, on zero, on empty. Yeah.
God, it just sounds like fiction.
You are on empty, and then also this coincided with the rise of the East and the crumbling of a lot of not the crumbling. I think a lot of Western myths have been exposed since the 2000s. This is when the Western myths are being exposed. The myths around democracy, around the Western creativity, around the fairness of global trade with the West. There have been a lot of myths around conservation, climate change, pollution. All these myths have been debunked just in these last few years. So we are needing to come up with, this is now the time we've needed to come up with new truths about agriculture, resilience of crops, productivity of crops, healthiness of diets, all these things. We need to come up with all these things, but intellectually we were on empty.
And, oh God, this is the time of solutions, when you can't talk about anything without being told, shut up if you don't have a solution. Meaning, be in an NGO or in the government, because that's what solution means. It means you have no right to comment on anything unless you can get a donor to do what you're talking about, or you can be in government to implement.
You can get a donor to give us money to do the thing you're saying. It's like don't tell us to stop eating poison unless you are coming with food in your hand. It's a neurosis.
It is. So can we put the 207 PV? Okay, we know politically how politicians, eyeballed each other until we fought, but intellectually, what was happening? I mean, how did this intellectual culture now help take us to that point?
I think intellectual, what happened in 207 is that we had the political issues that went on there, but our intellectual hollowness was exposed in that we didn't solve the problem. The intellectual hollowness was exposed in the way that we were appeased by certain people being given positions, being given money, being brought into government. So what we were fighting for was not any position of principle or any intellectual position. We should have gone for reprieve Paul, but we were actually fighting to have that's when we developed the culture of lieges and lords. We were fighting to have our lords at the table. And this was when feudalism came into Kenya, came to the fore. Whose camp are you in? How many people of are your people in cabinet? Is your liege in cabinet? And that's the sort of thing. And then this brought a situation where these lieges, once they're chosen as these 10 gods, they became above reproach. They could indulge in corruption. They could indulge in nepotism. Then it really cemented that what way to. And then suddenly you found the elite, the educated academia, became followers of their academic or intellectual juniors. So now we just became commodities being carried around by our leaders in baskets and being traded.
And then also we started entering politics. See, now people started feeling, since my ideas don't matter and I want to have impact, the only impact I can have is in politics. So let me run for office. So you have all these professors running for office or being appointed by government.
Yeah, and then a professor is running for office as a foot soldier of someone who doesn't know as much as he does. Or a lawyer. A lawyer runs for office as a foot soldier of someone who knows less about law and ends up defending things that are illegal instead of advising. Even if you choose, it's fine if you choose to join politics in support of someone else, that's fine. But when you are a lawyer and you let him do illegal things and you stand up to defend it instead of advising him on how to do it legally, it's like you see the brilliant legal minds that were gathered to come up with the legal rubbish that was BBI.
Yes. Oh yes.
It's inexplicable.
Yeah.
It's inexplicable. So we got to a point, that's the point where even the position of Attorney General in Kenya became, instead of being a legal advisor to the government, they became the legal janitor for cleaning up legal mess every time government messes, instead of advising government on how not to mess legally. So then that's when the highly qualified Generation X became janitors and seeking to be promoted to be senior janitors, rather than seeking to be people who actually build stuff within government. We are still cleaners up to now. We're still cleaners up to now.
And I've just also remembered there's this culture of if I see something wrong, I need to find the ear of a minister who wants to listen to me. So then NGOs start brokering for you, because that's what happened when I started talking about education. I start getting these NGO people telling me, oh, we can go and talk to Matiang'i, oh, we can talk to Joko House.
Yes.
So they start brokering.
Yes, NGOs actually became a poisoned chalice. In my field, conservation, NGOs became, you want an appointment with the minister, you go through an NGO. An NGO can get you an appointment with the minister because, and they know how the NGO culture got into Kenya government, as you said. When an international conference comes, an NGO has shown up at the minister's office with a first-class air ticket paying for him to go. An international conference comes, an NGO shows up even to the president's office and pays for the president to go. That's why when the former president Uhuru Kenyatta is at the COP28 meeting, NGOs call him to side meetings and he goes and brings 5 ministers. It's because NGOs started running our conservation sector. NGOs walk into KWS right now. They run so many programs in KWS. So NGOs, like in conservation, NGOs were supposed to support KWS's policy and objectives. But they now dictate those policies and objectives. So whenever you see KWS doing something meaningless, like giving veterinary treatment to a zebra that's been injured by a lion, it's an NGO paying for that.
Then they take the photos.
Yeah. When you see wildlife ministry doing something stupid like running meetings around the country to decide whether we can do consumptive use, shooting animals to be fed to tourists in lodges. When you see them doing something stupid like that, you know it's an NGO has paid them to do that. So I don't, in many ministries, but I can tell you, in the wildlife sector, we have zero policy of our own now. We just do whatever any NGO pays for.
So even CBC was being defended by
Education,
NGOs.
there's no Kenyan
running the conversation.
Yeah, it was an NGO thing. In Ministry of Health, we only gather health data because an NGO wants it, or Gates Foundation wants it, and has given us tablets to collect the data. So suddenly you see we are collecting all this health data, then you hear we are partnering with Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Huh?
So that word partnership is such a con, because I was saying in my interview with Msingi, even the American churches were telling us we were partners, but there's no partnership there. They have dollars, an imperial power. We are not partners.
And there's nothing that pleases any imperialist like finding some covetous civil servants or leaders. You give small handouts and they give you the world. They'll sell you their people for a small handout.
So 2017, God, 2017 redeem us. Oh Lord, what happened after 2017?
That was a growth moment. That was a growth moment. But we chose to remain in captivity as long as our Lord or our leader was kept happy. Then we pretended to be happy. And that's why thereafter we didn't properly prosecute all the wrongs that were done. We didn't compensate, so we swept everything under the carpet. Coming forward from then, that's when now things took root, things like CBC, these NGOs getting into our systems and NGOs and corporates getting to our systems and manipulating everything. Healthcare, they're manipulating. Education, they're manipulating. Conservation, they're manipulating. Agriculture, they're manipulating. They're manipulating everything. Kenya is just a marketplace. So you want to sell your seeds, come into Kenya. Suddenly World Bank is sponsoring a project for people to plant popcorn type of maize because someone's given money for it. No one asks like, no, we need maize which can be made into unga for people to eat. We don't, popcorn is a sort of luxury lifestyle item. We don't need that. It can't be made to animal feed. Suddenly we are you see all this narrative around every civil servant is worried about Kenya's population suddenly. You wonder, where did that come from? Felix Gosgei is talking about the National Museum of Kenya. I don't know who is talking about where. And you realize, oh, Bill Gates Foundation. It's Gates Foundation doing this. We did Huduma number for some corporate. We don't know. There's no Kenyan reason. What are we doing with Huduma number? That data was collected for someone. And it's gone.
And you see my frustration, because now that's when I'm rising into consciousness. The frustration was if you raise those issues, you'll be told, number one, provide a solution. Number two, stop attacking people. Number three, you're always making it, why are you blaming colonialism and it ended? Africa's problems are from Africans. We were gaslighted for 2 decades.
Then labels started. You started being given labels.
Yes.
You are anti that, you are homophobic, you are this, you are that, you are that, you are anti-vaxxer, anti-vaccinations, you are a climate denier. Where's climate? Climate deniers. You are a climate change denier, climate whatever denier, and all this, because you are questioning things that certain people are doing. And personally, coming from 2007, 2008, I mean, I finished my PhD 2007 late. Going forward for those few years, then up to I worked in conservation, trying to make this thing work, my knowledge work, conservation. for the next 5 years or so. 2013, 2012, 2013, I start getting restless and wondering, I'm not seeing the objectives of certain things we are doing. Then I really properly woke up 2014. Then I realized, oh, this is actually colonialism. So I'm meant to, they don't want my knowledge. I'm meant to be a window dressing, highly qualified, Black, indigenous Kenyan. Then that's what I'm selling. But the message I'm meant to be giving, I'm giving out is what someone hands to me. And that's where personally my difficulty started.
Even, yeah, it's interesting because I also graduated in 2007.
Yeah.
And the first thing I was told when I returned to work was, your subjects are useless to the market. So I also did like you. I started trying to make this marketable, sexy, trying to make sure, our students know what the arts are for. I think it's also in 2015, I realized, no, I'm being conned. This is a con. But imagine you spend 5 years trying to make something work. Do you know that is loss? It's loss of time.
And probably the saddest part of it is, okay, first you realize you're being conned, so you're pissed off. Fine. But the saddest part is that you look at your seniors and your mentors and you realize, oh, these are guys who've accepted the nonsense.
Yes.
They're not senior because of merit. They're senior because they've accepted the slavery. And some of them came out and told me straight up that, if you start fighting or asking these questions, you run into problems.
At least them, they knew me. Nobody told me. Nobody told me. I walked blind.
Especially because in academia, no one will tell you.
Yes.
I was told because I was sort of in the practitioner field. Yeah. In academia, no one will tell you.
No one tells you. No one tells you. But okay, before we now start going to 2017, 18, 2010, we get the Constitution. Is there anything that changes intellectually? We're not talking about whether we got presidents and counties and what.
Not for some time, because it has taken years for people to understand and be conscious of the new Constitution and its provisions. Even MPs, I think, have only realized this year that you are in service of the people. You are not in service of the executive.
Oh, yeah.
I've always kept being taken aback when the president would summon MPs to State House. This started with even former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Summon MPs to State House and tell them to vote this on certain issues. And suddenly you got this situation where MPs' legislative activities or positions had nothing to do whatsoever with the people they represent. Punitive taxes were introduced on all kinds of livestock, and MPs from pastoralist communities never said a word. Thousands of shillings being levied on cattle per head, and they never said a word. Camels, sheep, goats, and they never said a word. Then you realize, oh, they don't realize what they're supposed to be doing. That's why even the president, in withdrawing the finance bill, showed that he still doesn't understand the new Constitution. He doesn't have authority to withdraw a bill.
It's the MPs who decide.
It's the MPs, it was introduced in Parliament, needs to withdraw it in Parliament. But even the common citizens, the law enforcement agencies have taken forever to understand that the right to picket, etc. We still struggle with the things like deploying the army internally while deploying a police externally. These are basic. So it has taken about 14 years for the intellectual change envisioned by the new Constitution to actually start happening in Kenya. Or maybe it took about 10 years. It took about 10 years. But before then, people still thought we are operating under an imperial presidency. This is what the president wants. This is what we should do. I mean, the cabinet ministers who are envisioned as technocrats are still operating like politicians and failing to do their job because of political considerations. And this is the biggest problem. But this is what we are waking up from now. So it has taken, I think, the agitation of this younger generation to wake us up to what it should be. And you see, the older generation are really struggling with this. They're still sort of talking like aliens. You know, the proverbial aliens you see in cartoons that are saying, "Take me to your leader." They're telling the Gen Z, "Who's your leader?
Take me to your paramount chief.
Who's your paramount chief? Who's your lord? Who's your teen god? What do you want to do with that leader?" And I saw a really nice something someone wrote online. I forget the name. He said, "We are the generation who we want to respect you and judge you based on what's your point, not what's your title. What are you saying, not who are you?" And that's a wonderful place to be. And I think so. The new constitution, it did a lot of good things. It created a lot of good spaces, especially freedom of speech, etc., and freedom of association. But we still struggle with it. That's why you find people rallying up against the registration of association of atheists. You don't want atheists to register association. You don't want certain associations to take care of the welfare of gay people. That means you're still struggling with the provisions of the new constitution. And I think we will struggle some more for a few years to come, because the county governments still really struggle with certain governors are involved in central government issues. They don't understand that an executive meant to be taking care, like the so-called National Dialogue Committee, that nonsense of after the Maandamanos. For months and months, Cecily Mbarire has been sitting there. So who's been taking care of Embu? She's the governor of Embu. And she spent some months and months on the NADCO committee. And you see Council of Governors still feeling that they need to give statements in support or one way or the other in reference to national government functions. No. And that's where we still struggle. We still struggle with.
There's also this thing of consensus, the habit of consensus. So what happens is, after every election, see, now people have been scattered because they went back to their constituencies. So now, once government starts again, now you have to co-opt everybody. You have to see, who do you buy?
We are seeking unity.
Yeah, they call it seeking unity, but really it's to prevent, it's to impose consensus. So that's why this Gen Z, they didn't see them coming. The kids have been there. They've been saying all these things all this time.
Yes.
But because there was nobody to buy, they didn't see it coming.
They didn't see it coming. In fact, they're so foolish. Like they say, why are these people complaining? And we nominated Karen Nyamu to Senate. We nominated this, that, the other young people. So why are the young people discontent? Because our generation always seeks someone to co-opt, someone to corrupt, someone to define. So even now, that's what they're saying. Where's the leader? We want to talk with them. What do you want to say with them? You govern properly. You don't need to talk with anybody. Govern. You've been elected to govern, then govern. And it's not a problem of the youth. If people are hungry, even old people are hungry.
Hungry, yeah.
The taxes imposed were not imposed on the youth. They were imposed on everybody. And it's an admirable thing that something like these people are protesting even against motor vehicle tax. Many of those are not people who have motor vehicles. It's not, it's in Kenya's economy, it's very few people of that age who have earned enough money to buy a car.
But you know, they are the Uber drivers.
Yes, okay, yes,
the Uber drivers. I think what the finance bill did was to tell young people, and I don't know, I'm not talking on their behalf. I'm just saying, what I heard from the finance bill is that even the possibility, we are taking it away.
Yes.
It's not even that we are taxing what you have or don't have now. It's that if you dare acquire, if you dare say, borrow a loan and buy a car to Uber it, that one we will take from you.
We will tax it currently.
We will tax it. If you even say where we are taxing. In fact, that's what they've been saying on their posters.
Yeah. Even if it's your mother or father who gave you money to buy this car, you have bought it, you fuel it, you service it, you insure it, but we will tax it. You can't be just driving. And you remember how Kimani Kuria said that ridiculous statement. Cars are luxuries. Cars are luxury. And you look at why the tax is being imposed even on trailer trucks. You see, a trailer truck may cost something like 20 million. 2.5% of that, 2.5% of that is what? It's $500,000 a year, just paying. Anything transported by that truck, that has to be put on. And you see, the courier was stupid enough to say that this is going to encourage investment in railways and alternative transport. When the people who buy cars are trying to build railways.
And in fact, he said foreign investment. It was foreign.
Yes. Yeah, so you are taxing local people to encourage foreign investment. What kind of idiocy is that? Even by Kenyan standards, that's pretty low. But and you see, it's small things like that suddenly Gen Z or people may be listening to him speak, and then that's the thing that suddenly triggers someone says, hell no. And then people start protesting. And then you remember the first reaction is our generation started saying, these kids haven't even read that thing. They are protesting over things they don't know. After the nonsense, Kimani Kuria said, what else do you need to read?
Actually, that was all you need to know.
If you hear this,
they're taxing bread to prevent us from having diabetes.
Yes. If you hear a statement like that, what else do you need to read? If you're a pastoralist and you hear they're taxing cows, what else do you need to read? And we were saying some time back that the era of kingdoms invading other kingdoms has ended. Right now, regimes are collapsing under the weight of their own idiocy and contradictions. Our security forces are going around looking for ringleaders, while the enemy is the idiocy within.
Yes.
You can't arrest it.
But
they're looking for leaders.
We warned.
We warned them. Now they're looking for who is financing this. No. You don't need to finance. You know, when you say something that insults me, I don't need to be financed to be angry. And all the things we can conquer with politics and lies and illusions, the one thing that doesn't react to that is hunger. When I'm hungry, it won't matter what you tell me. It's the pain in my stomach.
So, maybe, okay, let's talk about the Uhuru years. What happened? Or is it nothing?
That was when we hit our intellectual rock bottom.
And we were supposed to come up.
That was Kenya's intellectual collapse can be traced to the Uhuru Kenyatta years. When it was governance by social media, influencers became powerful. I mean, how do social media become part of the presidential inner circle? That's ridiculous.
Oh yes, that's what happened. Influencers entered government.
That's when influencers entered government. We hit intellectual rock bottom. And then
no longer the NGOs, it's the influencers.
Yeah. So the Uhuru years were spent squandering everything that had been built before. And we scraped the bottom of the barrel at the end of Uhuru's era. So this current government came in based on the fact that, okay, there's an empty barrel here, intellectually, spiritually, everything. So they came in. It's probably at a difficult place, but it's also an easy place because the standard set before you are so low, you don't actually have to do much to improve. But they came in and did zero.
They were copying Uhuru.
You came in to replace a mess, and you started copying the mess.
But you see, there was no intellectual analysis of the problem with the Uhuru years. Remember how we were really gaslighted, especially 2017, those times, the Cambridge Analytica time. We were gaslighted and told you people are not giving solutions, you're not positive, when are you going to talk about? So we never analyzed what he did. I tell you, I think even up to now, that's why people are talking about, the leader has spoken. Gachagua is talking of going back to him. Nobody has analyzed that period, 2013 to 2022. Nobody is saying anything.
And that's and it's coming out in the complete idiocy we are seeing. Someone the other day was saying that, in fact, now we need to start looking for a new leader, and he's suggesting the name of Matiang'i.
I saw that.
Matiang'i.
I saw that one.
And I said, how dumb can people be? Really? That means, and that's what we were talking about earlier on. Anyone, if you are shocked by what's going on in Kenya right now, there's something wrong. You are either part of the problem that was there, or you are so indolent you could not see what was in front of our faces for years. You think you want to replace one, someone comes and bullies you, and then you look for another bully. Like, how juvenile is that? We must, and it's because we think there is something prepared somewhere that we need to find. We think there's a shortcut. Kenyans think there's a shortcut. That's why even gambling thrives so much in this country. We all think there's a shortcut to success. There's a shortcut to academic growth. There's a shortcut to professional growth. There's a shortcut to learning. And we are all looking for it, because if I find it, then I'll be set. And that therein lies the problem. Therein lies. So the Uhuru's years, it celebrated mediocrity.
Yes.
We had mediocre people. Suddenly became very loud voices in our society, these influencers. They're mediocre people, and we began following them, and they still have, and they even parlayed their following into government jobs, which they still have even now. The number of people who even ran for office and gained parliamentary seats based on comedy on radio.
Comedy
based on online insults, and even people even got nominated to legislature and various legislative seats based on their looks, their social media influence, anything but not substance. That is where we got. I mean, people would get the number of people you see in senior positions in legislatures, in government, etc., and you cannot see what substance it is that got them there. That is the legacy of the Uhuru, yes. That substance stopped mattering.
Because, I mean, he became president because of who his
Yes.
parents were.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
how can substance matter
Yeah.
in such a regime?
Yeah. Yeah. Substance never mattered. That's why you see an influencer can actually move from working for this side of the political divide to the other side. And people don't think it's strange. Because, in fact, the other day, a snapshot of that emptiness was an argument. I forget what it was about. This the former PS Irungu Nyakera, who is now leading some party called Farmers Party. He was saying something about this Gen Z protests, and he was against it. And someone told him that you're part of the problem. And he said, you shouldn't argue with me if you have less than 10,000 followers.
That's now.
Yeah, Nyakera said that. Forget what the topic was, but he said that somebody go and get 10,000 followers first before you argue with me. So this is someone who was a permanent secretary in Uhuru's government. And he thinks number of followers is a measure of intelligence. He approaches intelligence quantitatively. This was a top civil servant in Uhuru's government. These are the ilk of people we have there.
So now we've gone through the 4 decades. Now we are here. What does this moment say about our generation, the generation that were born during independence, the first decade, the first 15 years of independence?
Yeah. I think it says we turned out as the colonialists intended. Good at following others, bad at thinking, no identity of our own. And you can tell, because even those of us who have an identity of our own, we deliberately searched for it and fought for it and still defend it today. So we have farmers who have no reason of their own for why they should grow whatever crop other than the market wants it. We have people who did various courses not because they had a passion for that or a skill for that, because the market wanted it. We have people who actually write, or report, journalists, etc. Instead of saying what's going on and educating their audience or public or readers, they're writing what they think those people like to read or hear. You think you're a musician, you're a reporter. A musician seeks to play music that pleases people's ear. Reporters keep trying, and not just reporters, but the media houses keep doing these funny market surveys to find out what people want to hear. And that comes even into news or the editorial policies. So even our government itself keeps doing what we think the West wants, not what we want. Kenya has no identity. I still can't find a Kenyan reason for any of our policies. It's because the UN wants this, it's because the US wants this, because the UK wants this. That's where we stuck at. And that's our generation. Our generation are the ones in power now, in the presidency, in the cabinet, in the diplomatic service and everything. And that's why we had a speech like what Ambassador Kimani gave at the UN following the Russian invasion of Ukraine, saying how proud we are of our colonial borders. That's because we are what the colonialists intended. And we do not read outside our courses or our jobs. We do not read, and we refuse. We actually refuse to. So, and that's why we keep thinking there's a solution. We keep asking for solutions. In fact, my friend Edna Rotich says that they keep asking, is there an app? If there's a challenge, somebody, is there an app I can use I can download to sort that out? And that's why we embrace AI, because AI is touted as something, if you use it, you don't have to think, oh, that's wonderful. And here we are, Patrick Bakoyan is introducing a school of AI at University of Nairobi. And all those professors of our generation, not one of them can speak up in question of that.
So we started off by saying we were here. These kinds of protests, we did them. We did them in the 1990s up to 2000. In fact, it was a long drawn battle. You know, we go to the streets, then the politicians meet, they give one concession, then we go to the streets again, they give another concession, and it went on like that until 2002. And at 2002, we were burnt out. I think we were burnt out, basically. Yeah. So what are the lessons from history that we can learn for this moment so that we don't go that route again?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson is that we must get, you know, like when you have a meal, you can decide I'll have ugali and some beef and some vegetables and a cup of tea or a soda. We must open our minds, first of all, read, see, observe, hear everything, and pick lessons. There's something from China that works well for me. Yeah, I think I'll take that. There's something here, American, that works well for me. Yeah, let's do that. There's something British that works well. There's something from Uganda I saw that works well for me. I'll pick that and make something for ourselves. We need to tailor our destiny or our path. Right now, we have been led from independence to now. We've been led by people who've been followers. We want to follow the West. There's some time back, there was something, as is Kenya now beginning to lean east? No, we should lean towards Kenya. Not towards America, not towards China, not towards UK, not towards whatever. And I think once we internalize that, then we will chart a path. And then the path becomes easy to adjust. If you realize this is not working, you drop it and take something else. You drop it and take something else. But even down to our educational system is targeted to create labor for
the outsiders.
Outsiders. Our agriculture is tailored to grow crops for export to other places. So we
our children are supposed to be exported.
Yes. Our head of state speaks with pride about exporting labor. He speaks with pride about looking for truck driver jobs for us. And that's
NGO-ish, eh? That's NGO-ish. What you are saying.
That's so NGO, because the NGOs don't have policies. They implement other people's policies. So Kenya government the Kenya state now has become like an NGO or a startup. In fact, Kenya is now a startup. Our state is a startup. We have a problem here in IT. Yeah, we'll give you policemen. We need construction workers here. We'll give you construction workers. We need truck drivers. We'll give you truck drivers. We need flowers for Valentine. We'll give you flowers.
That's quite cheap, that kind of thinking. Eh?
It's very cheap. There is no part of what we do that is targeted to ourselves. So when people call the Gen Z selfish, I say, yes, you be selfish. We have to start taking care of ourselves now. Our state has been taking care of other countries' interests and the interests of those its upper echelons. Let's do something for us now.
So basically, which was the hard part. It was a hard part I couldn't talk about yesterday. I just said, "Ay, apana. We are a lost generation. We are gone."
Ours is lost. The Gen X lost. And we have our years of, every person has their years of maximum physical energy and maximum intellectual energy. So your peak years is when your physical energy is still not declined too much and your intellectual energy is also peaking. And that's around, our generation, that's now. So someone who is not performing and seeing clearly now at this age, on the emenda. Do not expect anything from the leaders we have in office now. They are not capable of it. And it's not their fault. If someone is doing so poorly at his peak intellectual and physical energy, if someone is doing really poorly in their 50s, you're thinking he'll do well in his 60s and 70s. Intellectually, no, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So that's the problem. And the reason why we are sort of fighting or finding it hard to support the Gen Zs is that we are terrified by the coming irrelevance. Imagine if you are discarded at age 50, dumped from your job or any relevance. You have 30 years, 35 years left of useless years left in your life. You think of the MPs now who have dedicated their lives to politics are now going to be dumped out of their seats at age 50. You're not even employable. Who wants to employ a former Kenyan MP? After this pathetic performance in the legislature. So Kenya is going to have, and extend that to senators, MCAs, governors, PSS, parastatal directors, board members. There's a few thousand useless deadwood that we will have in Kenyan society in the next 2 years. Frustrated, irrelevant, and all that, because they have done nothing with their best years. And these are the people panicking. These are the ones saying, set the army to the streets. The army cannot defend you from irrelevance. I'm sorry.
In fact, it reinforces your irrelevance, because it means you have nothing to say. The only thing now left is brute force.
Yes. Police cannot go out there and arrest irrelevance before it reaches you.
Hey, Ogada, that's an emotionally hard thing to take.
It's a very emotionally difficult challenge for these people. So and you see, the confusion you've seen in our leaders' speeches in the last couple of days is a symptom of that emotional turmoil. So those listening to those speeches, you've never had any sense come out of someone who's in emotional turmoil, whether it's from bereavement or whatever. It's a terrible time for any person. So when they talk, when what they say doesn't make sense, that's understandable. Because this is an emotional crisis right now. It's a spiritual one.
But we warned. I mean, come on, we warned.
We warned them for so long. And it's almost like parenting. You see, there's an age at which your child needs you to change his nappy and feed him and bathe him. Fine, you do that. The child he grows up a bit, he needs to help him a bit with the dressing up. Fine. He now needs you to pay his fees, maybe kick football with him. Fine. Ride a bike with him. Fine. And all that. And you have to keep changing to keep that relationship with your child. Even when he's now in his 20s, he'll need some small time, a bit of advice from you here and there and reassurance and all these kind of things. And if you fail to do that, if you're still trying to help him put on his trousers or put on his shoes at age 25, you're pissing him off. You're pissing him off. And our generation just never adjusted. We never adjusted because we never learned. We never learned.
We didn't become elders. That's what happened.
We did not become elders, exactly. Mm-hmm. And I think as per our conversation earlier, elders, the term elder is not a chronological term. It's a social and intellectual term. So it's not automatic. It's a season of life. It's a season of life, not just a stage in years, not just a number of years. It's a season. And we have old people who have never become elders. Because if you become an elder, at a certain age, you'll stop stealing billions because you know there's not enough years left in your life to spend it. But as we don't have seasons, 80-year-olds are still stealing left, right, and center.
I mean, like I look at MPs, you're already a billionaire. You're receiving 1 million shillings a month. How are you bribed with 10K? And you're in your 50s. How is there not a place where you start saying, I'm too old for this? I mean, come on.
I need to move to the next season.
Yeah. We haven't moved. We are still in our 20s.
Yes. They have no seasons. They have no seasons. They have no seasons.
Because even now that you say it, I realize even the church, what they were saying was still, it was still the message of the 90s, which is, you young people, you want to be recognized. You see, as we used to be told, you want nice music, you want the bands, you want the what? Come, we'll acknowledge you.
Yeah.
Now, this time they are saying, you want us to talk about justice. Okay, we'll do it. But they're not asking, why are we here? Because actually, for me, that's the question of our age. Our age group should be asking, how is it after 30 years we are here? That's our question. Instead, we are asking, now, what are these Gen Zs doing? What do they want? What can we do so that we can align with them?
You cannot align.
They're saying we are adults now, things are not working. You elders need to fix it. What are you saying? Instead, they're saying, oh, you people are technology. You're tech savvy. Hey, you're rude. That's where we are at.
Some are saying they're badly brought up.
You're badly brought up? Oh, these people, what's up? That's our conversation.
And you start talking at so we can align with them. You cannot align with someone who's not your peer.
These are our children. And I don't mean in the derogatory term, but We're the
We are
ones who
vertically
gave back to
separated.
them.
Yeah, yeah. The way, I mean, and it's just, yeah, it's the way I relate with my son now is not the way I related with him when he was 4. I still relate with him, but I know I've given him enough guidance to make wise decisions, and I cannot start telling what's wrong with you. I mean, if I start telling what's wrong with you now, that's an indictment of me. Like, how did I lose sight of what he was becoming? It's like saying, like, it's like the question of NIS has not briefed the president. It's like me suddenly saying, how come no one told me my son was not happy with my behavior, with my parenting? Who is supposed to tell you? It's an indictment of us. It's a spiritual crisis we are in.
It is.
That's why some people are, yeah. Sadly, the government is trying to deal with it like it's a political crisis. It's a spiritual crisis. It's a spiritual crisis. And if they cannot find a path to it, that's why even the church is inviting politicians to come and do fundraising, and the Gen Z are telling, we will come for that fundraising. And just like that, fundraising in church by politicians has ended. Pop.
But you see, these questions were raised. They were raised like 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, I was on Citizen saying, why are the churches raising money for projects I am being taxed for? Then I was told,
Yes.
oh, you're against so and so what?
You're anti-development.
Why do we have to go to the streets for us to grow up?
Yeah.
You see, that's the other problem.
Yeah.
Why can't we grow up without being pushed to the wall?
Yeah. And you see, that's why, and Kenya is a human problem. That's why even if you look at CDF, CDF was meant to do, it's called Constituency Development Fund, but it's meant to solve welfare things that maybe a market or a local playground can develop things like that, social development. But now CDF, how many places have we traveled around and found CDF being used to build police stations? The CDF is now being used to finance the executive arm of government. It's building chief's offices. So the money which was meant to sort of help us is now that they're taking back. And yeah, we have to grow up. You're right, we have to grow up. We have to grow up. And then you see the sad spectacle of making old parents, you know, where I live, there's a lot of kids are actually being brought up by their grandparents. You see those old shows and bukas lining up at today, bursaries being given out today. The whole day in the sun, waiting for a pittance towards bursary. Why don't you make school actually free? Instead of fake free, then you give bursaries. Why don't you just make it free? We claim it's free. Or if our education is free, why are we giving bursaries?
That's not a solution. Anything that takes away from the individual glory or whatever is called not a solution.
Yeah.
So you see, an MP can't say, we have decided to make education free. We'll figure out how we are going to do it. They can't say that because how he won't get glory for it. You see, that's the issue.
Yes.
Get glory for it. Nobody will say he gave us a solution, so he can't do that. It's better to give back.
It's like Senator Uroba and the sanitary pads. You're supporting a bill that taxes them, yet you are saying that people should get free. So you realize that actually expensive sanitary pads cements a position of relevance in society. Because they'll as long as they're expensive, there'll be a good number of girls and women who can't afford them, and she'll have reason to have her face on billboards. Kenya is imperialist to the core.
Yeah.
It's just that we are a fake empire because we don't rule any other country. Like we are imperialist. Although we are now trying to write it, but
imperialism is still hollow. I mean, look at the US.
Imperialism is hollow by definition.
Of the presidential debate. I mean, come on. I mean, what? And you know, these Democrats, by the way, who make these decisions, they're like our elites here. Highly educated, but completely hollow. They think because they went to Harvard and they went to wherever, that makes them very good politically.
Yeah.
Hey.
Same case in the UK.
Oh, yes. UK,
you saw the debate between Sunak and Starmer. What are these?
Yeah, we are in the same position. What?
We are in the same position.
So if give a shout, give a last word for our, hey, this is our generation that is, hey, but you see, we were captured. That's our tragedy. It's not that we wanted. It's just historical circumstances drowned us. Yeah. So
I want to our generation. Our to our generation is that we grew up during a difficult time intellectually. Sadly, most of us chose not to educate ourselves outside what other people were trying to educate us. We have ended up in a situation where we are now like fish out of water. The only thing we learned is how to swim, and now a drought has come. You have to learn how to walk, otherwise you die. So it's not too late. We must open our eyes and educate ourselves. But what we must not do is try and stand in the way of the next group. Someone like me, whether my own child or other students I've mentored, I've always helped support the next group. So I'm not in the way. I'm very comfortable with that. But if you try and stand in the way of a tide, a dam breaking, it's useless. You'll get swept away. Don't try and stand in their way. Try and understand them, help them where you can. If you can't do any of that, just get out of the way. Because it's a season that has come. You won't light a fire to stop winter. It's a season that has come. And we talked about it. So now, manage your place in that season, because the season itself has come. It need not be a tragedy, but it's what we are talking about is a spiritual exercise. Finding a place in the new season is a spiritual exercise. It's not physical. It's not physical. It's not financial. Whatever. It's spiritual. Whether you're in church, in academia, or whatever. Yeah. Just find your place in the new season. But the season has come.
And it has swept. It can either. Oh, poor us. But maybe we are the shock absorbers for. Yeah, I think let's evacuate this problem, then the next generation can build something. As we were there to remove the cobwebs and to. Okay, that's not how I envision myself, but it seems that that's what history is going to say about us.
The important thing about sort of educating or re-educating yourselves now is that even if you get out of the way, there will be one who will come and ask you for some counsel or advice. It might be your child or even your grandchild will come and ask, what do you think? What's this? What's this? You better have something to tell them.
And that's okay.
Yes, that's fine. You better have something to tell them, because if you don't, you will have rendered yourself redundant. Kabisa.
I think also what the NGO neoliberal thing did to us was it gave us our role models were no longer eldership, wisdom, impact.
No.
It became money and positions.
Grants.
And brand, yeah. So people feel, our generation, we feel that to not be in a big position, to not have a big title, we think that's a bad thing. But, we are not counting the kinds of other work that we can do that we are not going to be paid for. You see now that's what happened to us.
Spiritual work, that's spiritual work.
We don't know how to do spiritual, emotional work.
Yeah. You start asking, who's paying me for that?
Yes. We only
So
know
instead
money, positions, and property.
So instead of even mentoring or counseling your own child, you will pay someone, because I've got money, you pay someone to give him a phone number, tell him go talk to so and so.
Yeah, we need a lot of relearning. Yeah.
Neoliberalism has damaged us. Not everything is to be sold and bought and employed and those things. And it's reached itself by date, not just in Kenya, but all over the world.
All over the world.
All over the world. This is not a Kenyan issue only.
Because, we became brokers. We never wanted to ask things for ourselves. It was always, is there a donor who can pay? Is there an appointment I can get?
Yeah. The donor gives money and we just ask them, okay, when do you want it implemented? Okay, bring the money. And they give you a job and you get a big SUV with that, a big office, and fine. If you ask any NGO person what was the objective of what they are doing, they don't know. They tell you there was funding from the EU for this, so we did it.
But there was a loop which allowed that to happen. These awards and fellowships, and actually we forgot to talk about that. These awards, fellowships, trips abroad sponsored, that's the other thing. So what was happening is that even when you're doing stupidity, as long as you're getting this of the year 19, you now think, okay, I'm doing well. But you're not asking, am I doing well by my people? By history, by my children, have I done well? So
or am I doing, or I'm doing well towards which objective?
Yes.
I'm just doing well like in a vacuum. Because and we became a generation where I'm doing well is like I'm sitting in an office, I'm earning a salary 1.4 million a month, got a big SUV, club membership page, I'm doing well. We define that as I'm doing well. If I'm working for an NGO if I'm working for an NGO that is busy suppressing fertility of African women, it doesn't matter. I've got membership of a club, I've got a Range Rover, I've got a big office, so I'm doing well.
And I have met the French president
I've met the president
in Davos.
If I'm working for yes, I went to Davos World Economic Forum. So if I'm working for an NGO that's taking land away from pastoralists, it doesn't matter. I've got a corner office. I fly to the international conservation conferences every year. I'm running a 50 million
class.
So I'm doing well.
Okay.
Our time has come. Get out of the way.
Has come. Yes.
Reinvent yourself or support. But it's not a matter of choice. It's a season that has come. You can't do any of those things, you are condemned to irrelevance.
And it's not a moral condemnation. It's just
no. It's just the way things are.
Season.
Yeah, it's just a season. It's a season that has come.
Okay, I think that's a good point at which to end. Thank you very much. I hope we won't have depressed people, but tomorrow is Sunday. The pastors, I hope, will do the work of comforting them, not of telling them about, oh, Gen Z.
Yeah, and you know, when people embrace spiritual work, you realize spiritual work actually is not, it's not hard.
It's not.
It's very fulfilling.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Karibu.